What's going on, everybody? Tori McElhaney, Amna, Subhan, and Terrin Waack here for the Falcons Final Whistle pregame show presented by Zaxby's. Man, do we have a doozy. The Falcons are back in primetime for the first time since when, Terrin?
2022 for primetime, 2020 for Monday night.
There we go. I knew she had that on tap. I knew that you had those dates right off the dome.
I really hope I didn't blow that, though.
No,
You're totally right.
That was
totally
great.
Right
No, thank you. So Monday Night Football matchup with the Atlanta Falcons facing the Philadelphia Eagles up in Philly. It's going to be a madhouse because it's also the first time that the Eagles are back in the United States of America for a game. They started off their 2024 season down in Brazil, beating the Green Bay Packers, 34-29. Lot to talk about going into this matchup. Falcons are coming off of their Week 1 loss against the Pittsburgh Steelers, where they lost to a team that did not score a touchdown, only scored 10 points themselves. So let's really get into it. I want to start with this idea of the Falcons are back in primetime. And I know I said it off the top, but I do think that's a pretty big deal because they didn't have a primetime slot at all last year. This has been a team that even if they have been in a primetime slot in the last few years, hasn't really gone super well for them. So more than anybody else, you two have been in every conversation with players and coaches this week. You've been in the locker room. What are the Falcons contingency saying about tonight, or not tonight, but Monday night, and what it means for even the franchise as a whole?
You want to go?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit boring, but it's kind of just like, and I get that mentality of like, it's just another game. Doesn't matter if it's at night, if it's at Monday, Thursday, doesn't matter. Like when the ball is snapped, it's like football.
Right.
And I totally get that as like, you kind of have to have that like neutral mindset and you can't get too high or low riding that roller coaster. But Jesse Bates, I loved what he said where he's like, yeah, like the whole world is watching. Like we want to go out and show what we can do, especially after that Week 1, bummer. Yeah. Like you definitely want to turn it up in those moments.
Mm-hmm. No, I second what she said. It was mainly like the coaches and the coaches. I don't know where I was going to add to that because it was the coaches who were saying it's more exciting for the players than it is for us. For us, it's still game planning for a game. Football is football at the end of the day. But you did have a few players be like, ooh. I mean, it is exciting because Jesse said that even though he has been in primetime in his career. But there are some younger ones, say Bijan Robinson, where you could see the smile on his face where he's like, big lights, big stage, like, let's do it.
Yeah. And to the point that what Jesse was saying, it's like the Falcons went out last week in Week 1 and didn't play to the level of expectation, particularly on offense, that I think the league at large, I know our expectations for them, they didn't meet them. And they have said, we didn't meet expectations. The whole talking point of this organization going into the 2024 year is there's a difference between perception and reality. Perception of this team is that it's a good roster. It can go win games. It can be leaders in their division. The reality of what it was in Week 1 was not that. Yeah. And they have to turn it around. They have to turn it around quickly because, like what I said on this show this time last week, was like, you can't hide. You cannot hide from the onslaught of powerhouse football that you need to be ready to play in the first 4 weeks of this season based on the schedule that you've been dealt. That, again, comes up in Week 2, Monday Night Football in Philadelphia against a team that offensively, I'll say, is looking pretty good. So when we're kind of thinking about the differences of what expectations and reality and perspective should be, with all eyes on the Falcons offense, because that's where the eyes are right now.
For sure.
I know we all had, different points of contact between locker room, press conferences, all that kind of stuff. But for the two of you, when it comes to what Kirk Cousins and Zach Robinson has said about this unit and how it needs to bounce back from Week 1 to Week 2, what's been the most telling thing that you've heard them say going into this matchup?
What's tough is I don't feel like they've necessarily been talking about what they're going to change moving forward, because the questions have all been geared toward what already happened, if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense.
And so if anything, the moving forward is cleaning up mistakes, making the operation smooth, no turnovers, operate like they think they can.
Mm-hmm.
But that's about where that ends, because the questions keep circling back to Kirk Cousins was in pistol, Kirk Cousins Achilles, Kirk Cousins this, like play calling this. And I understand why, but I do feel like we're still living in week 1 in week 2. I've written more about week 1 than I have week 2 at this point. And I understand that because, again, it was the biggest story. And the point they keep making is the game plan was contingent on the game. What they saw, that'll ebb and flow with the season. And if so, week 2 will prove that. If they go out and do the exact same thing, then you can't say it's going to ebb and flow.
Right.
But so you can let that one go. Like, play calling was what it was because of the game. Sure. Believe it because that's what they said.
Yeah.
You don't have insight into those meetings.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to Kirk and his Achilles, he said he's fine. Zach Robinson said he's fine. Raheem Morris said he's fine. If we could talk to the team doctor, I'm sure he would say he's fine. I don't know who on Twitter is a doctor being like, wrong.
Here's the thing.
But,
this thing has taken on a life of its own.
Exactly.
And
the Achilles can fly.
Right. Like, I truly, it's really hard for me sitting here right now, and because I understand where people are coming from.
Yeah.
I understand that given what the offense looked like on Sunday, they have come to their conclusions and they are sticking with them.
They were disappointed and need something to blame, where the Falcons aren't blaming anyone.
The thing is the Falcons are sitting there being like, Zach Robinson literally verbatim said, I take full responsibility.
Yeah.
For
That was
the
a big
way,
moment.
Yeah, it really was. That was my biggest takeaway.
Right? Like that, he literally stood up there and said the first couple things out of his mouth is, I take full responsibility for the way that this offense missed a step. And not just missed a step, missed a couple steps. And I thought that was very telling. This is the first time play caller. I think he's learning as he goes, and the fact that in his first press conference where things weren't all rainbow sunshine and happiness, he's like, yeah, no, I know I need to be better. There are things,
volumes.
right? Like there are things that I know I need to do better to prepare this offense, and in moment nuances of game calling, like I know, and play calling, I need to be better too. At the end of the day, though, I think I want to make this point, and I think people can believe it or not. There's no conspiracy that the Falcons are doing what they're doing and did what they did game 1 because Kirk Cousins can't physically do something. And the reason why I say that is, like, we have to go by what these people are saying. Like, I don't think that they're standing up there and just spouting off lies, which I think is what a lot of people think they're doing.
Oh, they do.
And I understand why people feel that way. But I just recommend that people go back, and more than anything we can say, you cannot believe me, you can kind of tune me out if you want to, but go and just listen to Zach Robinson and Kirk Cousins' press conferences from Thursday afternoon. I felt like they were asked the questions that they needed to be asked about pistol, shotgun, under center, Kirk's health, play calling, all of those things. And I felt like the answers that they gave made total sense in terms of scheme, in terms of health, in terms of play calling. I thought they came very prepared with answers to explain what happened and why it happened and how they don't want it to happen again.
Yeah, and they were giving full explanations. I know the one thing that everyone was also harping on was the stance.
Yeah, Kirk's stance.
Kirk
Instead
is
of
normally
right
foot forward. He was squared up, and if I could stand up and show y'all, I would, but you won't be able to see it. But the point of being square is so you can twist and turn either way quicker without closing your back off to one side of the defense. Because if you're right foot forward and you're turning the opposite way, you're really shutting yourself off. Is that like the blind side right there?
Like,
right.
yeah,
exactly. It's
right.
a new blind side.
Like,
but
that's the thing is, like, that's what Kirk was talking about. And he talked about talking to Peyton Manning and going back and looking at Peyton Manning. And when he knew that fundamentally back in April, that using and working out of pistol was something that Zach Robinson really wanted to do, he was like, okay, I need to evolve my game. And to be fair, Terrin, you actually wrote this story on AtlantaFalcons.com about, like, this isn't actually an evolution of his game. This is something he's done before.
Yeah, he started in the square stance when he was with Washington because they ran in the pistol. And so he's like, I did that in 2012. I did that in 2013. I think then he switched to left foot forward, and then he switched to right foot forward and stuck with it. But he's tried all three. He's done all three, and he's just doing what's best in this moment. And he thinks that is being squared off.
Yeah.
And if we zoom out a little bit, this was just week one. Like it was just one game. Like the sky is not falling.
They had 50,
I know that
50 offensive plays.
Yeah, like it's gonna be like we all knew this when schedule release came out. There was like it's very primetime heavy. Like the start of the season's gonna be rough, and then you have the Kirk Cousins just coming off an injury and like the mentalness of it. Like I'm sure that plays a factor. You have a new play caller. Like there's rust that needs to be knocked off.
Yeah.
And we'll see on Monday because all eyes are really going to be on there.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see then.
Yeah.
Today's episode of Falcons Final Whistle is brought to you by Zaxby's. And after a long game, when I'm tired and I need to refuel, I turn to Zaxby's. Their marinated, hand-breaded, fried to perfection chicken fingers, they hit the spot every time. Get yours with seasoned crinkle fries, a nice drink, and whichever of their 12 signature sauces you're feeling at the moment. But it always hits just right. So next time you need to refuel, go get yourself some Zaxby's.
Let's talk a little bit more about this matchup as we move on. Philadelphia is coming off of a 34-29 win over the Green Bay Packers last week in Brazil. Which we, the three of us watched that game together in Pour on the Beltline celebrating Terrin's birthday, which was super fun. But I really have to go back to the way that the Eagles played in that game. I thought they had a very well-rounded offensive attack. It was Saquon Barkley's Eagles debut, and he ran for 109 yards on 24 carries. He averaged 4.5 yards a pop, scored 2 rushing touchdowns. I thought that he looked as advertised. Jalen Hurts was 20 of 34 through the air for 278 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. His leading receiver was A.J. Brown. Defensively, they did hold the Packers to being 3 of 11 on third downs, but they gave up 414 total yards of offense. What was interesting is that the Packers actually averaged 7.1 yards a play in that game, whereas Jalen Hurts and the Eagles averaged, I think, 5.5 and still lost. So to me, that tells me this is a defense that'll bend. They'll bend, but they're not breaking. I think, the Packers were 1 for 4 in the red zone. So they weren't punching it in. So all of that, Amna, I'll start with you. With this in mind, what part of the Eagles' just overall scope as you're going into this, and maybe they're even like plan of attack, should the Falcons be most concerned about as we're gearing up for Monday night?
Absolutely, it's Saquon Barkley.
Okay.
Like without a question. Like that's where you start. Like NFC Offensive Player of the Week. Like he has something to prove. He looked as though in that first game. But defensively, I find it interesting that the Eagles. You said 7.1 per
yards per play average.
They had 7.8 yards per carry on the rush. So Bajan.
Yeah,
coming in,
coming in hot. You look at that and you're like, all right.
Yeah, and then for the Falcons, like they held Najee Harris to like 3.5 yards and 70 yards total on the ground. Like that's something to like root for with the Falcons defense, and they look solid. And then overall, they held Pittsburgh to 3.3 yards per carry. So like, obviously Saquon Barkley is on a whole other playing field, but like that's something to hold your hat on, and I'm interested to see how they can contain him.
Yeah, so you've got run game just on both sides of the ball. Terrin, what are you kind of looking at?
I'm glad she touched on the offense because I'm just going defense here, mainly because I care, again, still circling back to week 1, I want to see the Falcons offense show us more.
Yeah.
And you have a good defense in the Eagles. Raheem Morris has talked about it, saying they're one of the best. They applauded the defensive coaches. They have some really good secondary weapons that it's kind of like, all right, all eyes on you. Prove that week 1 was a fluke.
Yeah, that it was an anomaly.
Exactly. Like, this is their time. And that's honestly where my kind of point of focus almost ends, because I'm like, the defense did its job. The defense did well last week. So now it's time for the offense to show up.
Yeah. Raheem Morris said we played winning football in 2 of the 3 phases of the game.
Was the storyline.
Yeah, that was the storyline coming out of that game. And it's up to this Falcons offense to show that it's an evolving, it's living and breathing, and that, yeah, it maybe got punched in the mouth a little bit in week 1. Those are the words of these players.
Yeah.
That this is not who they are. That this offense, this unit being projected as a top 10 offense is more in line with who they are than what they showed in week 1.
And when we talk about team identity, that was a big thing in training camp, right?
Yes.
Like the team finding its identity, and it's going to happen through the season. These are the moments when you find out. Like these are the moments where that's forged. When you come together, maybe you don't want to have adversity in week 2, but maybe that's better. You know who you are early on, and you can adjust, and you can just figure it out.
Amna with the locker room speech.
I know. Amna.
This is where your identity is made.
It's forged.
Put me in, coach. I'm ready for the pregame speech.
Forged in iron.
When y'all see the pregame speech and it's Amna, don't be surprised. All right, guys, we are going through our last topic, and it is a new game that we are introducing.
Tori loves her games.
I love a game. It's called Higher and Lower, so it's pretty self-explanatory. We are introducing this game where I asked Terrin and Amna exactly what the name of the game states. I'm going to go through 5 key stats from the Falcons' loss last week against the Steelers. Amna and Terrin, you must give a prediction. Will this stat that I'm saying be higher or lower this week against Philadelphia? So, we feel good about it? Everybody understand?
We do.
Very self-explanatory. I don't.
Watch me botch it.
I know, right? Yeah. Okay, let's start off with Bijan Robinson. Last week, he had 68 rushing yards on 18 carries. Do you feel like that will be higher or lower? Amna, I will start with you.
Higher, especially the yards. The carries, I think it might be right around there.
Yeah.
But like if you have 18 carries, you got to have some higher percentage there.
Cool. Okay.
Lower.
Lower! I knew Terrin was going to come in with some hot takes. All right. Why lower?
Because I think they're going to want to kind of balance it a little bit more, and that may pull Bijan's usage back, because you did see Kyle Pitts and Drake London combine for 3 receptions last week. 5 receptions last week. I think, Drake alone had 3 targets.
Yeah.
Is that targets or?
No, receptions.
Okay.
Kyle together, Kyle and Drake had 5 catches.
Oh, I'm thinking Drake and Darnell Mooney.
Oh,
they were
yeah.
3. My bad. Thank you.
Yeah.
But yes, low numbers nonetheless, 3
Right.
and 5 among like the 3 top receivers. So I think they might try to spread the ball a little bit more and show that they're capable of that and have more of a balanced attack in that way. So that's why I think Bijan's numbers might be pulled back a bit.
Okay, and we do have to think that Bijan was in. This is something that I even asked Zach Robinson about on Thursday. I was like, Bijan was in on 50 of 56 offensive plays, offensive snaps. Is that in line with what y'all are wanting? Is that maybe a little high? Is that kind of and he said, he was like, I wouldn't get too bogged down on what you saw in week 1.
Yeah.
And that become like a trend. He even said, like, Tyler Algier had 3 handoffs in that game, if I'm remembering correctly. So Bijan had 18, Tyler Algier had 3. So I almost kind of feel in between both of y'all, where I do feel like 18 carries, if you have 74 plays instead of 56, then 18 is right on par, but you would hope that the yards would be more. But I also feel like what you're saying can be true at the exact same time, where it's like getting Tyler Algier more involved, getting the pass game going a little bit more. So it'll be interesting to see.
Not Tori breaking the rules of her own game in the first
I'm
question.
the moderator. I can break
Higher or
the
lower?
rules.
Well.
It is my game. Let me have this. Okay, Ray McLeod, he had 7 targets on Sunday afternoon's game. Do we think that will be higher or lower? And Terrin, I'm going to start with you, because I think this goes right in line with what you're talking about.
I'm going to go with lower.
Yeah.
Mainly because of what I said, for the exact same reason, where I think Darnell Mooney and Drake London will be more involved, and their 3 combined receptions wasn't enough.
Amna, same.
It's a Ray show, baby. No, I'm kidding.
I was about to be like, dang.
Yeah.
Back it up.
No, lower.
Lower.
Like, you've got to get those other guys involved. With how talented Kyle Pitts and Drake London are, like, we need to see more of that.
Right. And even Zach Robinson said, we got to get Drake London going. He said that verbatim on Thursday. So I'm also going to go lower. Let's move to the defense. The defense had 2 sacks against the Steelers, 1.5 from Grady Jarrett and the other half from Matthew Judon. Amna, going back to you, do you think the Falcons will sack Jalen Hurts higher or lower than 2 sacks?
I don't want to break the rules. I feel like it might be right around there, but I'm going to go lower because like I feel like Jalen Hurts is a pretty mobile quarterback and he knows how to escape. So did Justin Fields.
Right.
But they were still able to break that pocket a little bit. But yeah, I think I'm going to go lower.
Okay, Terrin.
I circled higher, but then sitting here, I thought about Jalen Hurts' ability to scramble, and I was like, but now I'm going to stick to higher just so I'm different.
Okay, there you go.
But I think it's solely because I think you're going to see more from Matthew Judon, especially now that he has a game with the Falcons under his belt where it's kind of like, all right, that one's out of the way. I'm more comfortable now, another week of practice in where he can truly show his pass rushing abilities.
Yeah. I think I'm going to agree with you. I think I'm going to say higher as well because I felt like the defensive game plan going into week 1 was very just like chill is not the right word, but it was very normal. It was very fundamental, very basic. It wasn't very elaborate. It wasn't very flashy, which I think worked well for this defense. Obviously, Steelers didn't score a touchdown. So that's all well and good. I say higher because I do think that we haven't seen even an iota of what this defense has in its arsenal and what it can do, and kind of getting different looks involved, some more elaborate blitzes perhaps. We'll see on that. But even though it is Jalen Hurts in the pocket, I think you can learn a lot from going from Justin Fields and his skill set and kind of seeing how the mistakes that you maybe made and allowing him to leak out of the pocket a little bit more, to look at Jalen Hurts and be like, okay, we feel like we're in a better spot than we were in week 1. We understand this type of play, quarterback play. We know he's gonna, we know how he can hurt us with his legs. So how do you game plan against that? And I think the Falcons defense, there are a lot of veterans on this defense, and I think that it's one of those things where I think you even talk about somebody like Jesse Bates. I feel like sometimes Jesse Bates is a guy who he sees something happen once and he gets maybe burned on it, or he doesn't play it exactly how he wants to, and it's very rarely do you see someone like him make the same mistake twice. And I think that that mindset and that mentality can bleed over into the entire defense. We're moving on. Going back to the offense, they had 3 turnovers against the Steelers, 2 interceptions, and 1 was a botched fumbled snap that the Steelers recovered. Terrin, do you think 3 turnovers higher, or I'll even say like stay the same for this one? Do you think it'll stay the same or be higher, or do you think that they'll rectify that and it'll be lower?
So with this one, my mindset was more so what they need. And so I went lower because I don't think the offense that we saw last week is what this offense is going to be on a consistent basis. But at the same time, I need to see it to believe it.
For sure.
So they need lower.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. They need it, and I also think it will be lower because I think that this offense, Kirk Cousins, this offensive line, like they're veterans. They know how to do this. They know how to play in a tough environment. Kirk Cousins has been played at Philly several times, so they should get it done, and I think they will.
Yeah. Okay. I'm also, you know what? I'll go lower with you guys. Feeling like you want things to evolve in the right direction. And if the Falcons do not turn the ball over 3 times against the Steelers, perhaps we're having we're probably still having the same points of contention that we have and same talking points, but maybe we're talking about a win and not a loss.
They're not as bolded.
Yeah.
If there's not 3 turnovers.
If there's not 3.
It could be the same topics, but it's not bold, highlighted, exclamation point.
Exactly. And it's not the sky is falling and Kirk Cousins is hurt and like what in the world is Zach Robinson doing, which is like now the prevailing like talking point of the last 5 days. Last one, and then we'll wrap up. Offense. Y'all had to know I was going to get a formation question in here because we can't go 2 minutes without someone asking us about formation, pistol, shotgun, under center, Kirk Cousins' stance. I know we talked about it at the top of the show. The Falcons only had 2 snaps from under center. Granted, again, very shortened drives, so we don't know how many more were in
the arsenal.
But we have also heard from Zach Robinson and Kirk Cousins this past week saying, we like working out a pistol.
I loved that.
Right?
I like the pistol.
I like the variety it gives.
I like the pistol. End of story.
Right,
what do you want from me?
Exactly. He's like, And the Rams had 80% or more. I can't remember. They had 74 offensive plays. 80% or more was in shotgun or pistol, and they had 10 of 74 plays run under center.
You ready for the exact number of pistol?
Please.
Let's go.
63.2% of their plays were pistol for the Rams last week.
And here's the thing. No one out there is asking about Matthew Stafford and if he's hurt. Like, like
Sean McVay's not like, well, let me explain why we ran out of pistol.
Right.
Like,
no one's
asking
asking that question. It's just the fact that this is all new in Atlanta.
There's a lot of details.
So that's beside the point.
Anywho.
The Falcons offense had two plays from under center. One was a 4th and 1 call that it was a handoff to Bijan. It looked like it was going to be a quarterback sneak, ended up handing it off to Bijan. And then the other one was in the fourth quarter when I believe it was when Kirk Cousins clocked the ball or clocked it. So 2 snaps under center, higher or lower, ladies?
Do you want to do it on the count of 3?
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Higher. Why'd you hesitate?
Because here's the thing. It's a higher with a caveat. I think
I don't know. You can go much lower than 2.
No, exactly. And that's why I didn't say lower. Because
you hesitated. You hard hesitated and waited to see what I was going to say.
It was a yes and.
It's
a higher and. Because if it's higher, it's not going to be by much more. I don't think they're going to go and throw everything away because of what other people are saying, because of the questions. This is something that Kirk Cousins said was a big fundamental philosophy they started in April. And like you guys said, with the Rams, that's where Zach Robinson comes from. They're not going to just throw everything out because things went wrong in week 1. They're going to keep doing what they've been installing for the last, several months.
No, that's a great point.
I'm just like equal. 2 exactly. Again.
Exactly. Terrin, rebuttal?
Oh, I said higher, though.
Oh, no.
Oh.
Go higher.
Higher. You know what I would love, though?
If they come out in the first drive and it's all under center.
No, they do none.
They do none.
I just prove a point.
Double down.
Like, complete out of pettiness, be like, not a single snap under center. But that's not going to happen. It's going to be higher than 2.
Yeah.
Because even yesterday at practice, we saw Kirk taking snaps under center, and it was like, whoa.
But that was
all training camp, too.
Exactly.
So it's like,
that was another thing that I was like, what are we doing here? Because there were a bunch of videos and stuff that were posted from the open media period about Kirk.
It's just proof.
And it was like, they did that all of training camp, too. Like, every time we saw them working on individual drills, they were working under center as well. Yeah. That's the thing, is none of this is new. I don't guarantee it, but if we're using the Rams offense as a base point, which you should, we knew this going into 2024 because of Zach Robinson's history, because of
you know what you know.
You know what you know.
You're not going to just flip it.
Exactly.
Week 1.
Yeah. So I do think that it'll be higher, but I also add to both of y'all's point the little caveat that it's they have said, and they said it this week, we like pistol. We like it. And here's the thing is, if they go out against Philadelphia and they're able to run 70 plus plays, I do think you see a lot more variety than what they were not able to show in the second half, particularly against the Steelers. Yeah. So that's where I'll leave it. People can disagree with us all day long. Honestly, if you disagree with us, go ahead and just comment down and say why you disagree with us.
Do it nicely.
Well,
disagree.
That may be asking for too much.
You can disagree all you want.
Yeah.
Just say nice
things. Just say,
nicely.
Say nice
you
things.
You look terrible today. You're welcome.
All right, we're going to end on that. Falcons Monday Night Football. We are back in primetime, baby. So everyone make sure you like, comment, subscribe, even if you don't like the conversation. Tell us why. Why not? I'm just kind of setting myself up here for all of these horrible comments.
We love discourse, apparently.
Right, yeah. I'm at the point where whatever.
Tori's about to give out her phone number. Text me what you think.
Call me.
In a way, the Falcons are the same. They're say what you want to say. We're going to go and play on Monday night regardless.
There you go, Amna. That's a great note to end on. Again, Falcons Final Whistle presented by Zaxby's. For Amna, Terrin, I'm Tori. We will see y'all on Tuesday morning, bright and early. Amna and I will be there. Terrin will be on a flight back from Philadelphia, so she won't be sitting down with us, but we have someone filling in, and I'm really excited to have her podcast debut. So we will see you on Tuesday.